Welcome back to Business Talk Radio. We are joined once again today by Dr. Harry Aponte, who always gives us some amazing insights and, whatever he has to say. I sure listen, and I know our listeners do. Dr. Harry Aponte, welcome back to the show today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Please introduce yourself and the type of doctor you are and how you help people, especially in that Philadelphia area.
Okay. I'm Puerto Rican, born and raised in New York. Um, got my master's in social work at Fordham University, postgraduate training at the Menninger Clinic. Um, I'm a psychotherapist. I specialize in family therapy, working with couples and with families. But I also was trained to work with individuals. So I do the whole spectrum. But these days, what I'm really more focused on is training therapists, and what I call it, training the soul of the therapist. We can talk about that later if we want to get into that. But that's my main interest at this point of the game.
Got it. Oh, fantastic. Well, let's talk about your website. How can people find out more information about you?
HarryJAponte.com.
Got it. Perfect. And for today's area discussion, I know we had a guest that was supposed to be on with us speaking. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen today, but still the topic of conversation, or is it going to be the same?
Oh, no, this is going to be very different. So I gather there's a question
Oh, yeah.
that somebody brought up, and if you want to read that
I
question,
have it.
then we'll get into it.
It says Dr. Aponte has a super fan. And the question that they wrote in, okay, here we go. Dr. Aponte, I am quickly becoming a big fan as I have listened to some of the radio programs on Business Talk Radio and have gone on your website to see all of your techniques. I love the concept of using your own self and your own experiences to help break down any walls or barriers that might exist between therapists and clients. It makes such sense that I'm almost shocked that I didn't think of all this myself. That being said, I will use those principles to get through some of the most difficult patients I have. What I'd like to know is how long do you think I need before I can go and help other therapists with these principles and techniques? Mastering the use of self, I think, should be practiced by all of us. And I want to know how long it'll take before you would give your blessing to someone and say that you're really ready to work with therapists and help them at becoming better at their craft. And I don't have a name. I apologize, but I know you're hearing it. So
Hey,
it's you. That was very sweet.
yeah, very articulate too, I'll
Yeah.
say. Um, y- y- you know, uh, Getting the training, that can be a fairly elaborate thing. I have a book out. Um, you know, the, uh, the person of the therapist training model, mastering the use of self. Rutledge came out with the book. It's readily available. I don't think if you go to my website, you'll see the information about the book itself, and it gives you the whole approach to a thorough training. However, uh, I think I can speak to the very essence of this philosophy, and then you can build on it. And then, in terms of how long it'll take you to master it for yourself and being able to pass it on to others, that's between you and yourself. But I'll give you the seed. I'll share that with you. Uh, the you know in my training to be a therapist, I started from a psychoanalytic perspective at the Menninger Clinic, and the psychoanalytic world at that point, this was back in the 60s, was really at its pinnacle in terms of what people were thinking of. Okay, this is the way to do it. Okay, that's fine. And my hope at that time was that I was going to learn how to do it and be a great therapist. So that was my goal, you know. Um, and I came from a troubled background, family background. So I was pretty well conscious of my hangups. I still am conscious of my
Yeah.
hangups, unfortunately, or fortunately. And so I got into psychoanalysis myself, hoping to resolve all those bad issues of mine and come out clean and well put together, and I would be a great therapist. I spent almost 5 years doing that, and I came out of it, and I still have my problems. Okay.
We all
Uh,
do. But the fact you tried, I mean, right? We have to try.
well, Jill, you just put your finger right on it. You just said we all do. Yes, we all do, and we have to try. And that was the lesson, exactly the lesson that I learned from that. And it was immediately relevant to the work that I was trying to do. Because it said to me, okay, the soul of a therapist to me is somebody who can make a connection with another person and get in their shoes. And when that other person or that couple or that family is hurting, to be able to get into their story with your heart,
Mm.
not just with your head. Okay. Uh, but to get into it with your heart, to me, I realized what it meant is that I had to be vulnerable to myself. That when I was sitting down there with the clients or the patients, that I wasn't going to do what Sigmund Freud said. He said we should all become like surgeons when we become therapists. Well, I guess that means that your patient is anesthetized and you do magic over that person and fix them, right? It doesn't work that way. All right. But what what I realized through the work that I had done on myself, it was, let me just accept the fact that, just like Jill said at the beginning, hey, we all have our issues.
Yeah.
We all struggle with something. Things happen, whether it's within our family or it's within our society, or we make some bad decisions, and it hurts, and it causes us trouble, and it causes trouble for the people who love us, you know. And instead of just beating up on myself and feeling miserable about myself because of it, what I concluded is, something, this is really a challenge. This is something, it's an opportunity. It's something that says, just like Jill said, you have to keep trying.
And
And
if
that's,
at first you don't succeed, you try again, Dr. Aponte. I learned that as a young child, and I think it's good to teach our children that.
absolutely, because, it's in having some principles, having some goals for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, I'm going to spend my life working at this. I'm going to keep at it. And if I fall, I'm going to get up again and keep trying harder. And if I can't do it by myself, I'm going to turn and get the help that I need from other people. It can be from a therapist, it can be from a lover, from family, from God, wherever the help can come. If I need the help, I'm going to be humble enough and honest enough to say I can't do this all by myself. So let me get some help. But I'm not going to give up.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep on trying, and in doing that myself, I got a little wiser about life. I wasn't unrealistic about life. I didn't put unrealistic expectations upon myself or upon the people that I love. And that allowed me then to work on it rather than to deny it, run away from it, to try to drink it away with alcohol, or smoke it away with weed. I wasn't going to try to run away from it. I was going to engage it.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so and what I found is I I learned something about myself. I learned something about life, and I also became a bit stronger person than I had been before. You know, uh, so actually, if you read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, a Jewish psychiatrist who spent time in the camps during the Second World War, okay, and you read his story, you find out a man who learned wisdom and learned about love and learned about life by the way he took on the suffering that he experienced there. And this is a universal thing. This is not unique to one person. you know um, I was talking to somebody just the other day, and he's into Eastern religions, and I'm not that familiar with it. So he started to explain it to me. So I thought, there it is. It was right there. So I could find it in the Hebrew Bible, in the Christian Bible, in the Eastern religions, but they all come back to the same thing. Hey, we're human, we're flawed, we're challenged by it. It's not meant to defeat us. To me, it's meant to give us a chance to stretch ourselves and to dig a little deeper. And what that meant for me was that, if I could be more accepting of myself, a little kinder to myself, at the same time challenge myself, and accept in all humility that I may not be able to do this all by myself and accept help. Okay, I have a chance to be a little bit better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, uh, and and then when I would sit down with my clients, what happened was that when they would tell me their stories, I started to think about some of my own stories. When they talk about their pain, I started to think about some of my own pains. When they talk about getting discouraged, I thought about the times when I got discouraged. And what did that mean? That meant that I could listen to them with my heart, not just with my head, my ears. Okay, I could feel with them. Okay, they talk about feeling. I could feel your pain. Well, it sounds like a great phrase, but you don't necessarily know what that means, right? Well, I learned what that meant. What that meant was that I needed to open myself up, to have my own wounds available to me when I'm with somebody who's hurting, with people who are hurting, so that when they told their story, I got into their story. I walked the story with them, okay? And I could really feel what they were experiencing, even if they didn't have the words to articulate it, to explain it, okay? I could resonate with it, okay? Then I could begin to get a sense of this is where they are, this is what they need. And I became a whole lot more intuitive about what they needed from me. So that's when I talk about the soul of the therapist. That's what I'm talking about. There are a lot of approaches to therapy out there. They're excellent. They have wonderful techniques, but these are tools. You can hand somebody a Stradivarius, but he's never had a lesson in playing a violin. It won't do much good. Okay, so these are tools, but I think the therapist needs to have a soul, a heart, okay, that can resonate, feel with, and walk with your clients. Okay, and so that's where this was born from. So when you ask the question about how can I do this, I could say to you, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself about what you struggle with. Recall the pain, the hurts, the disappointments, the failures, all of that. Okay, the stuff that you don't like to think about, that you hope nobody else notices about you, bring it to mind, okay? Because they're going through their own stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through their own stuff, and be a little kinder to yourself, but take this on as a challenge.
Yeah.
If you do that and you begin to work on that, okay, you got the seed, and you can out of that you can say, I think I can be a better therapist just because I can really hear a person, feel a person, and be with that person in their journey to find a better self. Okay. out of that comes all of the stuff that I talk about, all the techniques that I use, and everything that I work with. Okay, so grab onto that, be kind to yourself, challenge yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got your beginning.
Beautifully said, Dr. Aponte. We're not taking no break today, okay? We're going straight through. Good. You got a little cappuccino or coffee? Here's our little break.
I, I have a little espresso here. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. I got the coffee. So there's our commercial break. Give us your best form of contact. Best form of contact? Oh, wow. He's got the coffee too. I love it. Yep.
RJAponte.com.
Perfect. And again, we're talking so much today. I can't believe you have such a super fan out there, which is great that they're listening, they're watching, and talking about mastering the use of self, right? And just trying and doing the best we can because, you have to try. And it's like that other thing I'm thinking of now, that little engine that could, right? I think I can.
Oh,
I think I can.
yes.
Remember, I have a 5 and 3-year-old, so I'm thinking it more in childish terms, but it's the concept. No, I think I can. I think, no, you can. You just have to try. So, again, we appreciate you enlightening us and our listeners and our viewers here today. Do you want to expand upon this conversation, or is there some other little sidebar
Well,
that we want to attend to? Because you're just a
well,
great speaker. I'm just here to listen
you know,
and press the buttons.
okay, there are many things to learn from this, because we can tell ourselves, this is what I should be, and then we set up goals for ourselves. I still remember a client, a young man who had his doctorate in music and composition, and he came to me to because he was not able to compose,
Yeah.
but he had his doctorate in it, and he wanted to be able to succeed, and he was very unhappy with himself. And so I said, well, then tell me your story of yourself as a musician. And well, what he's doing is he's getting into popular music, as a way of just making a living, but he's not giving it much importance because he's thinking of the classics, all right?
Of
Okay,
course.
so he's not a Beethoven or he's not a Mozart, but I'm listening to him, I'm thinking, I think you found your place, my friend, and if you can get into jazz and into popular music and you can use all of your knowledge to make that work, why can't you then take that garden so you're not raising, so you don't have roses, you have lilies, or who knows, a sunflowers. I don't know what you have, but why don't you, work with what you have and stop trying to go someplace that is really not who you are, who the genuine self is. You
Yeah.
know, he struggled with that. I failed
Yeah.
because he just he couldn't make that transition. He couldn't make that change, and that's where it ended. So ever since then, he's been in my heart, and I feel for him. But it's also been a lesson for myself, so that, yeah, I may have plans. Like for today, we had plans and they didn't turn out. So then what do we do in its place? We take advantage of what's there and make that work.
And you work
You
with
know,
it. Yeah. Absolutely.
so we don't torture ourselves. We don't make ourselves miserable by aiming for something that's really not who we are, or not what life presents to us as an opportunity. People have all kinds of tragedies. They have a business and it fails, and then but another opportunity presents itself because of that failure. Go for it. You have a relationship, and she or he is the person that you love and you think is going to make your life absolutely terrific, and that person doesn't like you anymore and leaves you, and you breaks your heart. Well, what happens? You don't just sit in your living room and start crying for the rest of your life. That's right. you know
Maybe
uh,
for a little bit. It's okay to express emotion and cry, but
Absolutely.
we're going to be strong. We're going to be positive. We're going to be resilient. We're going to get over this. And it just feels good here and in my stomach to think about that because we've all been there and it's okay. Yeah. And that just makes me find solace in our conversation because, you know, And even like with COVID, I'm just going to bring this up. We're all in this together. We're all feeling alone, depressed, stressed, anxious, uncertain, right? Some people lost their jobs, have done, it's just what makes me feel better is to know that everyone else is going through it and we're going to get through it together. You're not alone. And that helps when you have someone out there who can also empathize, I think is key. Not just say they understand, they get it, but to actually empathize is super important. So I'm feeling positive today, talking to you, Dr. Aponte, and maybe it's because of the weekend as well. But you know, you always have to look at the bright side of things, which is hard sometimes when you get lost in your own funk. But know there's a will, there's a way, and know that there's only one chance we get here, right? So why not try to make the best of it?
Yeah, and the opportunities are always there. You just reminded me of something, because I grew up in Harlem and South Bronx, and I don't know if anybody knows New York. It was pretty rough living,
Mm-hmm.
pretty rough growing up. And I ended up at this Menninger clinic at the time, which was really dealing with the elite in the psychoanalytic world in America. And somebody there, one of the psychoanalysts, saw me, saw the work that I was doing. He said, you're really promising. Why don't you become a psychoanalyst? Well, I'm a social worker. And then the Psychoanalytic Institute said, you've got to be at least a psychologist to become a psychoanalyst, not just a social worker. So that was it. It stopped me cold with that ambition. Thank God. Why? Because that was also the time when people were discovering family therapy, and then a guy from actually from Argentina originally, Salvador Minuchin, a psychiatrist, had come to Philly, was working with with African Americans in South Philadelphia, and he said, I know where you come from. I need somebody with your background to work with me. We're experimenting, we're trying out new things. And he invited me to come. And, I flourished here. I loved it. I was back home with my people. This is where I grew up in Philadelphia's version of Harlem.
Yeah.
Okay. And because of my background, I was able to relate to the community. I was able to find the leadership there. I was able to create things and get the environment involved as well as the families involved. And that's how I began to build my reputation and my professional expertise.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened if they had accepted me at the Institute and I became a fancy psychoanalyst.
See, but that makes you so down to earth and real, and not to put anyone else down who's in your field and line of work that you go to seek out some mental health guidance and help, but the fact you've been there, you've walked in their shoes, you've walked their walk, you're from where they're from, and that hits home, and that to me makes you such a more of a genuine person to talk to, because you've seen it all. You didn't grow up in this privileged lifestyle where, not to say that's wrong, some people have, but you really how to work to where you are, and you've seen so much. So I think that makes you a top choice of people to seek out, and when we're seeking help. Dr. Ponte, do you work with just people in the Philadelphia area, or do you work now virtually with people throughout the whole state of Pennsylvania and in other states as well? I'm not sure how it works. Could you just tell our
Well,
listeners?
I was looking at my emails this morning, and I was looking at requests from people who wanted copies of some of the stuff that I've been writing. And the first one that I found was a request from the Ukraine. And the next one that I found was a request from Greece. And then there was a request from Singapore.
Wow.
And then there was a request from England. Then I've had a number of requests from Africa. Well, it's getting around,
Good. Wow.
uh, and people are interested. And so I communicate with people really around the world, considering what we're talking about right here.
Mhm. That's fantastic. And we're almost at the end of the show for today. So what else is it that you want to leave your viewers and listeners with today?
Well, the bottom line is that there's hope in pain, and that the things that hurt us, disappoint us, challenge us, look for the hope, okay? And in that hope is the seed of life.
Yeah. Beautiful. And at this time, please give us your best form of contact information.
HarryJAponte.com. I'm finally getting to recognize your question.
Right. You do it a few times during the show. We want to just, people tune in at different points of the show. So we have to keep reminding them who we're speaking to, right? Think about it. You're in the car, you're listening to the radio, or you listen to a podcast, and it's like you tune in and it's like, who is this person speaking? So that's why we have to address your name so much during the show. And it's this shameless self-promotion, but trust me, it's useful, it's necessary, because I want to know who's on the other line there speaking. So thank you, Dr. J. Aponte. We appreciate the conversation. And I know you're going to be back with us on the radio at noon today, right?
Yes, I am.
All
Looking
right.
forward to it.
Same here. Thank you so much for the journey today and experience. And again, we'll have more Business Talk Radio coming right up after the break, everyone. So make sure you stay tuned.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.